Okay, so at this point you're probably expecting somebody to make a hilarious introductory joke, have a great self-deprecating sense of humor, but I paid him $50 to stay home. You're probably wondering also how all of us come up with these jokes. It's actually not as hard as you might think. For me, I've learned a lot from David's classes. Basically, it's about coming up with a premise and then just taking it in the unexpected opposite direction. It's a lot like using a bad GPS. So I'm 33. When I was younger, I used to think 33 was just so old, but it's actually not that bad. With the exchange rate, I'm only 29 American. See, a lot of you can relate. I used to work at Rogers selling cell phones, and so of course sometimes when a customer had a problem, they would come up to us and we would have to bring up their account on the computer. That was one of the only times where a girl would actually expect me to ask for her phone number. I thought it'd be a hard act to follow after David, but apparently not. So folks, I have social anxiety. I get nervous at anything where I know a lot of people are going to be. Naturally, here I am. Maybe I should stop attending all those riots. Thank you. In the past, my mental health problems have actually led to my being fired from 3 jobs. I didn't really understand it at the time. I didn't really understand what the problem was. And my imaginary friends couldn't figure it out either. But really, if you have an employee who's helping a customer and they suddenly break out into a song and dance routine, there's nothing wrong with that. A while back, a bunch of friends had arranged to rent a spot over in the Syncrude Sport and Wellness Center over here so we could play badminton. But when we got there, they had a problem setting up the nets, so we had to change our plans, and we ended up doing something else instead. It turned out to be something I wasn't very good at. It's known as conversation. Really, we actually ended up dancing, and during the night, I got really self-conscious. I didn't know you're not supposed to pirouette during a line dance. I really wanted to leave because I was feeling so self-conscious and anxious, but I needed my sister to drive me home. So instead, I called my mom and talked to her, and that helped. That and the bottle of Ativan I took in the parking lot. This was the trigger that made me want to investigate my mental health a lot more. So I ended up seeing a psychiatrist, and he increased and adjusted my medications. And that helped a lot, but it wasn't a complete fix. For a complete fix, I needed to start wearing my underwear on the inside. I also have what's called Asperger's syndrome, and one of the symptoms of that is I get distracted really, really easily. There are certain sounds that really distract me and annoy me really easily. I just had to keep telling myself that all those gunshots I hear outside are just normal. I often, when I'm at home, I often hear kids running around, yelling, playing in the hallway of my apartment building. I never should have given them all that Red Bull. I explained this to my psychiatrist, and he was very, very concerned because I live in a duplex. When I'm being treated by various health professionals, they often ask me about my diet, and I figure I pretty much eat normally, and I usually tell them that. I say I try to eat from the 4 basic food groups: fruit and vegetables, meat, dairy, and Pepsi. But I'm cutting back. I'm cutting back. I'm now down to only 3 liters a day. I also have chronic back pain, and I've been diagnosed with scoliosis. It had to be. It was either that or my bottom 4 vertebrae were made out of styrofoam. Really got in the way of that pirouette. One of my other big problems is sleep. 8 hours, I can get 8 or 10 hours of sleep and it only feels like 3 or 4. I have a feeling it's because I think a lot more when I'm asleep than I'm awake. My brain's so active. It gets really profound too. I'm probably laying back going, I read that a crayon can burn for up to 30 minutes in an emergency, but how does the crayon know when it is an emergency? How fast is the speed of dark? They say Superman is faster than a speeding bullet, but does that actually mean that bullets have speed limits? Maybe I should also stop drinking all that Red Bull before bed. Something to think about. I was diagnosed with sleep apnea earlier this year, so I had to get a CPAP machine, which is a machine that helps me get enough oxygen while I'm asleep. But since, as I mentioned, I'm so easily distracted, the sounds that the machine makes made it actually really hard to get to sleep. So I decided to try adding some white noise to see if that helped. But the Metallica CD didn't really work. It seemed like I had a feeling something was missing, and the next day I figured it out. So that night I actually played the CD, and it still didn't work. Someone suggested I try a fan, but I didn't really understand that. I wasn't sure how I was supposed to get to sleep and do this at the same time. One of my favorite things to do as far as hobbies is read comics, but David and nobody else, none of the other comics tonight are actually wearing anything with writing on it, so that's not going to work. But actual comics, I actually do like to read comics, but for some reason, the staff at the comic shop here, Charles Varieties, for some reason they hate it when I bring in a chair and a coffee. I probably shouldn't read them sitting in the middle of Franklin Avenue either. All that honking really gets on my nerves. I solved that problem though. All I do is just put in my earplugs and keep reading. You know, on a more serious note, one of the hardest things about having mental health issues is that so many people don't really understand them or don't really know how to deal with people who have them. It's not like somebody who's in a wheelchair or has a broken leg or something, where it's really obvious that they have a disability. Mental health problems are often invisible, so it's harder to tell. And that's one thing I hope that this event tonight will help raise awareness of. The most important thing is patience. If you're dealing with somebody who has mental health issues, just treat them with the same courtesy and patience, respect that you would for anybody with physical health problems. Thank you.